So as we continue on with our factoring practice here, up at the top is a very good kind of reminder on the order that we should be doing things. My first job is always to find any common terms that are there, okay? Something that all of my terms, whether there's 2, 3, or 4 of them, have in common. And then second, the number of terms will help me figure out, hey, which things should I do on this? So we're going to kind of do a little mix and match with some different things here and kind of see how this works, and maybe even use our help sheet a bit to make this a little easier. So if we bump this up a little bit, picked out a few. So of course, we get to number 2 first. This is more one of our common ones from earlier in this, earlier in the year. I look through x squared, 6x, and 5. Well, no number divides into all 3, and only the first 2 have an x, so I don't have any common terms. So with 3 terms, we go to normal, okay, factoring. And if you're going to use your help sheet, okay, our 3 terms, when there's a lead coefficient of 1, or in other words, when there's no number in front of my x squared, we're just going to do a diamond type problem. So again, that just means we're multiplying to get the number on the end and adding to get the number in the middle. And just like we have in the past, we look for clues. Like my multiply number's positive. Okay. So that means that either both my signs are positive or both my signs are negative. It's the only way I can get a positive product. So I look at the sign in the middle, which tells me they're both going to be negative. And when my signs are the same, whether they're both negative or both positive, we're multiplying to get this and adding. So multiply to 5 and add to get 6. If I think about that for a second, I really don't have a lot of options now, do I? It's 1 and 5. And I'm good with that. So that kind of just gets me some background as far as some of those factoring ones are going to go at the start. Now, what if, though, what if I get to a 3-termer, and I go through, and I'm like, okay, common, no. So I go, okay, well, what if it's not in common? So 3 terms, not 1. So either I'm going to guess and check, or I'm going to slide and divide. So again, sort of like what we did yesterday, I'm going to kind of run through both of these just to give you some options again. If we go to slide and divide, again, I take that term in front. Again, after making sure that all 3 don't have something in common. So here, swing that down to the end. Let me move this over so we're actually on the screen. So we swing down to multiply. And once I get down there, again, I get myself rolling sort of like I did up above, like I would with a diamond. My multiply number is -6. Which means I'm going to have 1 of each sign. My add number is -5. Now this time it's a little bit different. Since my signs are different, 1 positive and 1 negative, this tells me how far apart my 2 numbers are going to be. So if I'm building myself a possible list, even though 3 and 2 add up to 5, that's not going to help me this time. Because with different signs, they're 5 apart. So I want the 6 and 1. And the negative here just tells me the bigger number is going to be negative in this case. Now, even though that took a little bit of work, don't give yourself a pat on the back, circle that, and go to the next one, because there's one little piece left. So remember, this is called slide and divide. So when you divide, if it divides in nicely, 2 goes into 6 3 times. That in. If it doesn't, and my fraction is fully reduced, we just swing that back to the front, and I'm set. Okay. Otherwise, my other option when I'm doing this is to do more of what we'd call a guess and check. Now, the nice thing on a problem like this is that if I just went straight that direction, I'd say, okay, what do I multiply to get 2x squared? Well, I only have one option. 2x and x. There's no other way to multiply to get 2. And then I look at the 3. Well, how many ways can I get 3? Well, not many. 3 and 1. So the question now is just going to be, okay, since it's negative, there's going to be one positive and one negative. So what I'm basically trying to do here, if I go my guess and check mode here, is saying, okay, I got 2 and 1. I've got 3 and 1. Which way can I combine them that I'm going to end up with this negative 5? So I look and I go, okay, if I multiply these guys together, that'd be 6 and 1. I'm like, okay, to get to negative 5, negative 6 and positive 1. Okay. So to get this here, 2 times negative 3. And then here, positive 1 and 1. But again, I've had a handful of you kind of work through the math and do this, but slide and divide works on everything. So you've got to find the one that's more comfortable for you, that you're going to be able to get correct more often. And that would make life much simpler. So for like 10 through 15, those are all problems where, again, we would slide and divide, or we could do guess and check, just to kind of get you thinking a little bit with those. Kind of got them grouped off here for you today. So then as we get to the back, that's going to be the ones more like we were doing yesterday, the ones that are giving us our new looks at things. Again, these little formulas that are up here are things that you are going to need to get into your brain, okay, are going to need to be usable for you to be able to be successful with these. And so what we're always going to do, we always check again to see if there's something in common that we'd be able to take out. In this case, if I'm doing 19, there isn't. X to the third and 8 don't have anything in common except that x to the third should get me thinking, hey, is this a perfect cube? And that's, again, where it can be helpful if you have your help sheet. You're like, hey, yeah, that is a perfect cube. And maybe you even just write kind of small above there, what I cubed to get each of those numbers. Or I could do the same thing on my squares. Because that way, when I'm starting to try and work this one out, I go, hey, cubed, what do I cube to get 8? Oh, 2, okay. So I can get my values. And then once I get my values, I can follow my pattern, which is either here on my worksheet, or it's on the help sheet too. Okay, so either one's going to help me out in the work. So when I get here, since there's a minus in the middle, I'm going to use difference. So it's first term minus second term. And then I just follow the pattern we talked about yesterday. Square my first term. Whatever sign was in the middle, we change it. So since the first one is minus, this one becomes plus. Take the product of my two terms. And then plus the square of my last term. 2 squared is 4. And once I've followed the pattern, I'm done. So not bad, not bad. Another one of the ones that we did yesterday that was new is the grouping. And again, that's even on the help sheet here. We're going to group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. We're going to take out what they have in common and finish to make sure that there's nothing else in common to play with. So just take them in order. Again, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take them a pair at a time. So whatever's in common, it could be a coefficient, it could be a variable, it could be both. So here, nothing really divides into 2 and 3. That doesn't help me. But on these, this has x to the third, and this has x cubed. X to the third and x squared, excuse me. So I'm always going to take the smaller of the 2 exponents that I see on a variable. And then I'm just going to go, okay, well here it looks like I need the 2. I have 2 x's, I need to get to 3, so I need 1 more. And then on my second term, I need the 3, but I already have 2 x's, so I don't need any more. So my goal then, when I go to do the second one, is that I get the same set of parentheses left over, the same quantity. If I don't, something didn't go right. So I look at my second pair, and I don't see a whole lot that they have in common, except when they're both negative. So sometimes maybe that's all I'm going to be able to take out. It's the negative 1 in this case. So if I take that out, okay, negative 1 times what gets me to negative 2? 2. And I need the x because there's no x's out here. Negative 1 times what gets me to negative 3? Positive 3. Hey, I got the same leftovers. This is good. So to write the next part of my answer, I take my two greatest common factors, I put them together. I take the common set of factors, I put them together. Now, yesterday when we were doing these, that was the end, every single time. Well, that's not necessarily the case. You're like, what are you talking about? Okay. Be sure to check your remaining terms for further factoring. Okay, 2x and 3, no. X squared minus 1. 1's a perfect square. X squared, oh. I'm going to be able to do something else to this. I can break this down some more. Is this going to happen every time? No. But will it happen sometimes? Yes. So here, that's a difference of squares. So again, my difference of squares, I take whatever I square to get my first term, which would be x. My b is whatever I square to get my second term, which is 1. And we have 1 plus and 1 minus. And then my last one still stays the way it is. So before you circle any of these, especially if you see a squared in one of them, see if you can break it down more. Sometimes you may not be able to. If this would have been x squared minus 2 or x squared minus 3, I couldn't have done it because those numbers aren't perfect squares. The clue is going to be, do I see a squared, do I see a perfect square number next to it? Just something to watch out for. And then the last one I'm doing, before I give you some time here, you're like, whoa, x to the 4th, what? So you start looking, and you're like, okay, does anything go into both of those? I'm not sure. So if I'm not sure, I could either flip over and see if there's something on my chart that would help me out with those, or I can always go to my calculator to kind of check some things too. And this could be several things. It could be a common factor. It could be perfect squares, because I noticed 16's a perfect square. So maybe what I'll do here for a second, since 625 is a big number, I'll grab my chart here. So, ooh, there's 625. Okay, let's see what's going on here. 625, follow it up. 25 at the top, okay. Move it over. 25 here. Oh, wait a minute. Is 625 a perfect square? Oh, it is. Okay. So if these are both perfect squares, 25, 4 squared is 16, and to get x to the 4th, remember, we talked about this yesterday, we're going to treat this like it's a difference of squares. The only difference is going to be, instead of x times x is x squared, 2 plus 2 is 4. 4x squared times 4x squared gets me here. So once I have that piece of the puzzle, again, I go back to my difference of squares. So 4x squared plus 25, a plus b. 4x squared minus 25, a minus b. But before I circle it, I still see squareds. There may be an opportunity to break one or both down again. So I notice With squares, there's a difference of squares. So the plus, okay, the plus isn't going to break down again. There's no such thing as the sum of squares. Just a sum of cubes. But I look at the second one. Are 4 and 25 both squares? They are. This sucker breaks down again. So I look at this one and I go, okay. One more time on this guy. What do I square to get my first term? 2 to get 4, x to get x squared. What do I square to get my second term? 5, and I can do this in the calculator, or I can make my list on my colored sheet. And just like it was here, it's going to be a plus b, a minus b. And we're set. Again, it won't happen every time, but it will sometimes. So we always have to take a peek if there's a squared or a cube that's left over. So your job is to tackle some of the rest of these. There, again, the key's up front. If you have questions, let me know.